Welcome to week 4. This week, we're focusing on proposals, reports, and the art of concision. These topics may seem separate at first, but they're actually closely connected. Professional writers need to understand how documents function in workplace settings, how to structure information effectively, and how to communicate clearly and efficiently. All three of those skills come together in your major assignment 3, which is due at the end of this week. As we move through today's presentation, think about how each concept applies not only to the assignment, but also to the kinds of writing you'll encounter in future careers. Here's our roadmap for today's module. We'll begin with the rhetorical situation, which serves as the foundation for all professional writing. Then we'll look at proposals, reports, and concision. Finally, we'll connect everything back to major assignment 3. Notice that these topics build on one another. Understanding audience and purpose helps you write better proposals and reports. Concision helps you communicate those ideas more effectively. By the end of the presentation, you should have a clearer sense of how these concepts work together. Before we talk about specific document types, we need to talk about rhetoric. Rhetoric is simply the study of effective communication. In professional settings, good writing isn't just about grammar or correctness. It's about making strategic choices based on your audience, your purpose, and the situation in which your document will be read. Everything else we discussed today grows out of that foundation. Whenever you write a document, whether it's a report, a proposal, a resume, an email, or a training guide, there are 3 questions you should ask yourself. First, what is your purpose? What are you trying to accomplish? Second, who is your audience? What do they know, care about, or need from you? Third, what is the context? Under what circumstances will they read your document? These questions shape every writing decision you make. They influence what information you include, how much detail you provide, what tone you use, and even how you format the document. Professional writers don't start by thinking about sentences. They start by thinking about situations. Let's look at a practical example. Imagine a restaurant introduces new hygiene procedures. The information is important, but the audience is extremely busy. Kitchen staff are trying to fill orders. Servers are juggling multiple tables. In that context, a long memo posted on a bulletin board is unlikely to be effective. Instead, a short checklist posted at a hand washing station or attached to an order pad is much more likely to be seen and used. The content hasn't changed, the audience and context have. This is an important lesson. Even excellent information can fail if it's presented in a way that doesn't fit the realities of the audience's environment. Proposals have a very specific rhetorical situation. Their purpose is persuasion. You're not simply providing information, you're asking someone to approve an idea, allocate resources, or support a course of action. Your audience is usually a decision maker. That person has specific concerns, responsibilities, and constraints. They may be worried about budget, staffing, risk, compliance, or efficiency. Effective proposals address those concerns directly. The context often involves competition. Time, money, and attention are limited resources. Your proposal must convince readers that your idea deserves investment over other possibilities. For this assignment, I may technically be the person grading your work, but I don't want you imagining me as your primary audience. Instead, I want you to imagine the actual person who would evaluate this proposal in a real workplace. For Track A students, that might be a department head, an executive director, operations manager. For Track B students, it might be a supervisor, an HR manager, or a training coordinator. The more clearly you can visualize that audience, the stronger your proposal will become. You'll start making decisions based on their concerns rather than your own assumptions. Now that we've established the rhetorical foundation, let's look more closely at proposals themselves and what makes them persuasive professional documents. According to Ashman, proposals exist to persuade readers to support a specific idea, solution, or plan. Some proposals are solicited, meaning someone requested them. Others are unsolicited, meaning the writer initiates the proposal. Regardless of type, effective proposals are focused and purposeful. Notice the standard sections listed on the slide. Each section serves a persuasive function. The background establishes urgency. The proposed solution explains what should be done. The timeline demonstrates feasibility. The benefits section shows value. A proposal is not just a collection of information, it is a carefully structured argument. Let's shift now from proposals to reports. Although both are professional genres, they serve different purposes. Ashman identifies several common report types. Progress reports update readers on ongoing work. Recommendation reports analyze information and recommend a specific course of action. Summary reports present information so readers can draw conclusions themselves. The executive summary deserves special attention. In many organizations, busy decision makers may only read this section carefully before deciding whether to continue reading. That's why it needs to communicate the problem, findings, and recommendations clearly and efficiently. If your executive summary fails, the rest of the report may never receive serious attention. Next, let's talk about concision, one of the most important stylistic principles in professional writing. Concision is often misunderstood. It doesn't mean making documents as short as possible. It means eliminating unnecessary words so that every word contributes value. Douglas illustrates this idea through the example of a manager she calls the double man. This manager routinely buried information beneath layers of unnecessary language. The result was that employees struggled to find and follow instructions. Wordiness isn't just an aesthetic problem, it can create real communication failures. Douglas identifies 5 common sources of wordiness. First, redundant pairs, where 2 words do the work of one. Second, redundant modifiers, where an adjective repeats information already implied by the noun. Third, negatives, which often require more processing than direct positive language. Fourth, narrating and hedging, where writers spend time talking about what they're going to say instead of simply saying it. And fifth, throat clearing expressions, which use several words where one would suffice. These patterns appear everywhere in workplace writing. Learning to recognize them is one of the fastest ways to improve your style. This example demonstrates what happens when we apply those principles. Notice that the revised version communicates the same essential information while using dramatically fewer words. What's important is not simply the reduction in word count, The revised version is easier to understand. The main message becomes visible immediately. Concision and clarity reinforce one another. As you cut unnecessary language, your ideas often become stronger and more precise. Let's conclude by looking directly at your upcoming assignment. The model proposals succeed because they are specific. They define concrete problems, identify real audiences, establish clear scope, and explain exactly how research sources will support the project. Note that neither model tries to solve every problem. Instead, both establish realistic boundaries. That's an important professional skill. Strong proposals are focused, not expansive. The annotations also function as planning tools. They explain not only what the sources discuss, but how the writer intends to use them. The most common problems I see are vague problem statements, generic source annotations, and poorly defined project scope. A strong proposal identifies a specific problem affecting a specific organization or audience. It explains exactly how sources will contribute to the project. It establishes clear boundaries around what the project will and will not cover. And don't underestimate the importance of the timeline. A detailed timeline demonstrates that you've thought carefully about feasibility and implementation. Many students worry about formatting more than any other aspect of the assignment. My advice is to focus on clarity and organization. Use the required sections and headings from the assignment guidelines. Pay attention to document design principles we've discussed throughout the semester. Use white space, meaningful headings, and concise language. Remember that formatting communicates professionalism. Readers make judgments about credibility before they read a single paragraph. Let me leave you with 5 key ideas. First, always start by identifying your rhetorical situation, purpose, audience, and context. Second, remember that proposals are persuasive documents. Third, recognize the importance of the executive summary and recommendation reports. Fourth, apply Douglas's concision principles during revision. And fifth, use all of these concepts as you complete major assignment 3 this week. If you focus on a specific problem, a specific audience, a clear scope, strong source integration, and concise writing, you'll be in an excellent position to succeed. Good luck, and I'll see you in the discussion board.